But I think most importantly, this is a good reminder to be patient, right? To think long term. Good afternoon. We have a ton to cover this week with everything tariff and market related. My name is Brandon Steele, financial advisor with Mainsail Financial Group here in Bellevue. And our goal every Thursday is to bring to you the market news, the data, the trends that we're watching, and hopefully weed out some of the noise, lots of the noise lately along the way, because we have so much with this tariff update. Obviously, we covered this very briefly last Thursday when they were announced on Wednesday. And what I had kind of shared there is that, obviously these tariffs can be damaging, but there's so much uncertainty on what's to come that, we would kind of come back to it this week, and we absolutely will. But before I jump into the tariffs, I do want to touch on a few things prior. A couple maybe higher level data points that I do want to make sure to mention. First is we did get the jobs report Friday. So U.S. employment report shows that we added 228,000 jobs. We also got CPI, Consumer Price Index, or inflation data today, which was quite a surprise, actually, in a good way. So CPI was actually down. Yes, down 0.1%, and core CPI was up slightly at 0.1%, excuse me, as well. So both of these were a surprise on the good side, right? Showing that inflation maybe was lower than expected. Now, keep in mind that this is mostly because energy was down pretty significantly, especially for the headline number, but food was still up 0.4%. So there's still some challenges for sure on the inflation front. I don't want to say this one print suggests we're on the way to this is a continued decrease, but nonetheless, good news on both the jobs and the inflation front. And obviously the market has just shrugged it off because again, it's all about tariffs, let's be honest, right? That's really what the headlines are. That's really what's driving the market lately. And so we are going to focus on what has kind of unfolded over the past 7 days, and really use this as kind of our question of the week here for the week. And I'll share that, today's a good example of this. I mean, we see these great inflation numbers, but really, the markets are dropping pretty significantly again here today. It's kind of a hangover from all of the excitement because we had a giant up day yesterday. In fact, one of the biggest up days, I believe, since 2008. And the reason is, of course, is all the craziness over last week. So let's back up here a little bit. What I do want to share is that I do want to put a timestamp on this because normally it doesn't matter quite as much, but the last week or so, this is not just a day-to-day, but an hour-to-hour thing, maybe even a minute-to-minute thing. So I am recording this at 8:45 on Thursday, April 10th in the morning, Pacific time. So just a little timestamp because there could be some news between now and the time that this comes out at 3 o'clock. But, I want to kind of share what's gone on because there's been so much shift. So first off, I want to mention that obviously the big news is that the tariffs were announced last Wednesday after the market closed. And here we are today where we've seen basically a pause in the tariffs in all countries that did not retaliate. So basically all countries but China for 90 days plus a lower baseline tariff. And what we saw yesterday as a result of this, that news came out yesterday, I think around 10 a.m. or so, maybe 11 a.m. I forget exactly, but we saw stocks pop significantly. Most indexes up around 10%, believe it or not, for the day. Gold balanced, yields were kind of all over the place. And again, this is one of the best days in the market since 2008. So I honestly can't even remember last time we saw a day like that, which was incredible. Now, keep in mind, to put it in perspective, it came off of some big down days, but nonetheless, this was really a great day in the markets to see a little bit of relief. And here we are Thursday, and seeing the markets so far anyways, kind of pull back a little bit after the big day yesterday. So Wednesday, after the close, the announcement was made. We saw the markets pull back pretty quickly Thursday and Friday. And then one thing I wanted to mention is, just the amount of fear that was kind of coming through, because in the media through the weekends, the media was telling us to prepare for a Black Monday on Monday. And for those who remember or study the stock market, this was back in the 80s where it was one of the most significant down days in the stock market ever. And media was kind of scaring us that that could be coming. Now we went from that to actually closing pretty close to, well, given the volatility lately anyways, pretty close to flat on Monday. That said, it ended up opening down quite a bit. So there was a lot of volatility mixed in here. Popped back up. I think it opened down around 3% or so. Popped back up almost 3% at the highs, and then closed again slightly down, but let's call it relatively flat. So huge swings, not just day to day, but really hour to hour. Tuesday, we had a big drop, of course, as well, because the deadline was approaching for these tariffs to be implemented, and China was fighting back with retaliatory tariffs as well. The U.S. announced additional tariffs on China, and then, of course, the big day yesterday with the pause announcement, an increased tariff on China to 125%. And I believe that actually just right before I'm starting to record this, increased to 145% as of this morning on Thursday. So where do we go from here? I think, based on what we know today, obviously what I'll share and what I mentioned last time is that tariffs are a challenge for sure, right? Tariffs are something that can create slowdown in the economy. So we want to watch this really closely, but the truth of the matter is, as events have shown over the last week or so, who knows where these things land is the truth. And so it's really important to be watching this day to day right now and kind of making heads or tails of what kind of comes as we get information. But what I will share is what we do know as of, again, let's call it 8:45 here on Thursday morning, is that tariffs are significantly lower than the original rollout. Now, there are tariffs that weren't there before. So keep in mind that these tariffs can cause slowdown, and this needs to be weighed into market analysis and kind of what we're expecting for investments here for the year. But the question is this a way to negotiate with China? And I think that's going to remain to be seen. I think that this is the biggest thing to watch ahead is what shakes out. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but with the U.S. and China, they did come out this morning saying that the door is open to talks. The EU put their retaliatory tariffs on hold. So it's an unfolding story. We need to watch this really closely. I am hopeful that we get things resolved, and if so, we might have at least a bit more clarity, regardless of what that resolution is. At least some clarity and some certainty for what is ahead. I will share that China has been reported to reach out to some other countries given all this. And so I wonder if, as we kind of work through this, if either the US or China ends up kind of teaming up, let's say, with some of these other nations and putting pressure on the other country. And that maybe how this all gets resolved, whether that's good or bad, again, remains to be seen. But I think that, as the events are unfolding, that could be where this goes. So it'll be very interesting to watch this and see how the negotiations go between US and China. But I think most importantly, this is a good reminder to be patient, right? To think long term. And I know that these swings, and especially given the reason for the swings, are extremely painful. And quite frankly, we may still have a lot of volatility ahead. So I don't want to act like everything is settled. It absolutely is not, to be clear. But this is how much one good day of markets can really make a difference. So hopefully you have some defense in place in your portfolios. I know that, for clients of Mainsail watching this, we do for sure. So we've been kind of prepared for some of this volatility. But don't panic, right? Be thoughtful in the approach because it can shift, and it can shift quickly. And especially in this type of scenario, it's very difficult what's going to say what's going to come out the next hour, let alone the next day in terms of news stories. And that is really shaping where things go from here. So I think it's important to be patient. I think it's important to kind of pay attention day by day on what actually unfolds, because the truth of the matter is where things stand today, I don't believe is where things will end up. And it's going to be important to see where we land before we start saying, okay, this is the impact, right? So long-term focus, hopefully you have some defense in place, but be cautious of panic selling, because as we all know, collectively, right, selling during a down market is challenging for the long run for sure. So coming up, we'll leave it there. Coming up, we will continue to focus on tariffs, obviously next Thursday, but we do also get the producer price index data and retail sales next week. So we'll touch on those as well. In the meantime, have a great upcoming weekend for those golfers out there. Happy Masters weekend. We'll see you next Thursday at 3, and we will be sure to catch you up on all things tariffs.